Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. This time it's just a solo. I'm going to be talking about Emmylou Harris. It's a solo because Adrian's never really been an Emmylou Harris fan, sacrilege. So I'm the only one who can really do this one. I've been a fan of Emmylou's for over 30 years now. I hopped on board the Emmylou train about the time the Bluebird album came out in, what was that, 98 or so. So it's been not 98, I'm sorry, 88. Oh, the years slipped by. So a little over 30 years of really liking her material, occasionally covering songs that she covered, things like that. I found her to be a very emotive singer, and I really enjoy that soprano sound that she has. She's just a very soothing person to listen to. So she started off in a military family that moved around. And I believe she was born in Alabama, but then she grew up in Woodbridge, Virginia, which is not far from where I'm sitting. I'm in Northern Virginia, so it's a pretty easy drive to Woodbridge. So she's kind of a local hero where I am. There are a lot of people that saw her playing, I think, the Red Fox Inn in Maryland. She had a residency there at one point. And I think that was, I'm not sure if that was before and after, or it was definitely after her time with Graham Parsons. Um, Back in the early days, though, she was a folkie. And so she recorded an album in 1969 that she doesn't really regard as one of her own anymore, or at least not an official part of her discography. She was still learning. This is a reissue, so this was not the original cover, but it was called Gliding Bird. And it had some of her own compositions on it, like Clocks, which ended up on one of her retrospectives later, the Songbird retrospective, um, and also Fugue for the Ox, but also covered things like Hank Williams and Bob Dylan, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. This record is one of those you can probably pick up last if you're a super fan. It's interesting, but she's still young and she's still learning her craft. And she nails her craft later on. She's not quite nailing it yet on that one. But a couple of years after that came out, Graham Parsons came through, probably with the Flying Burrito Brothers. And I think the story went that Chris Hillman went to a show, heard her, and said, "Oh, Graham, you've got to check this girl out. She might actually be a good duet partner for you." And that's basically how it went. They met, they got on well. She started touring with him, and she ended up on his first two albums, or really his only two albums, the only two that were out. Come to think of it, I think when he died, only the first one was out. But both of these albums, if you're an Emmylou fan, are essential. She's all over them, doing duets with him, and she ended up covering a lot of this material later. Just anyway. Yeah, Love Hurts is on here. Ooh, Las Vegas. Um, what else did she do? She's done a lot of these songs. Anyway, oh yeah, she does an epic version of She on Luxury Liner, but we'll get to that later. So unfortunately, Graham Parsons passed early. He was only 26 years old. That was 1973. Uh, this posthumous release came out afterwards. It's got three more tracks with him and Emmylou on it. It's called Sleepless Nights, and Sleepless Nights is one of the tracks, and she covered that later as well. So she got to be somewhat known by touring with Graham, and so she had some opportunities after that. I know that she went and she sang aside Bob Dylan for the album Desire that came out in 1975. She was doing session work with Neil Young, getting tight with him, and also with Linda Ronstadt about this time. And so she eventually got a deal. Oh, I do want to mention there is a live album out there of her and Graham singing together from 1973, and it's not bad. It's pretty good. I would suggest giving it a listen. It's called Graham Parsons and the Fallen Angels, live 1973, recorded in California. So Emmylou eventually got notice, got signed, was advised to get a better band together, or a hot band, I believe was the word that was used. And so she did. And she came out of the gate with Brian Ahern producing, who was later, I believe, her husband. But she came out with this, Pieces of the Sky, 1975. This is quite possibly still my favorite Emmylou album, but I mean, it's got competition, but it's pretty solid. And it's the first one that I really heard. This one has just an amazing track list on it. Too Far Gone is amazing. If I Could Only Win Your Love, that was nominated for a Grammy. Boulder to Birmingham, which she wrote with Bill Danoff, who also wrote Country Roads with John Denver. He was also in the Starlight Vocal Band, by the way, Afternoon Delight and hits like that. So he had an interesting career. Before Believing is a song that I covered as a young lad back around that time. Well, it was, for me, it was about 1989, so. Yeah, Sleepless Nights, which we just talked about. A Beatles cover for No One, and Coat of Many Colors, Dolly Parton, a Shel Silverstein song, Queen of the Silver Dollar, which is pretty fun. So this was a great one, and it blew up. She did well with that album, and followed it shortly thereafter with Elite Hotel. This also is a classic record full of great songs and great arrangements, great performances, really nice singing. I mean, it's just amazing going down this track list. Together Again, that's got to be a standard. Sin City, a Graham Parsons song. Till I Gain Control Again is a real tearjerker. Amarillo, another John Lennon, Paul McCartney, in Here, There, and Everywhere. Ooh, Las Vegas, Sweet Dreams, the Don Gibson song. Jambalaya, Hank Williams, can't go wrong. And Wheels, which was another, I believe that was a Flying Burrito Brothers song that Graham also co-wrote. So those two records are among her best. And then we get to 1977's Luxury Liner. This is quite possibly her highest regarded album. I think it's her highest seller. Album number 3, 1977, Luxury Liner, another Graham Parsons. Poncho and Lefty, Townes Van Zandt enters the song catalog of Emmylou Harris. And what better song to use than Poncho and Lefty? It did so well that Willie Nelson decided to cover it later with Merle Haggard. So yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on here. And then a number of Rodney Crowell songs, who's a great songwriter who was, I think, contributing brand new songs at this time. A great version of Chuck Berry's You Never Can Tell. The Louvin Brothers, When I Stop Dreaming. That's a great one. And She, the Graham Parsons song, she does a real nice job with that, with Ricky Skaggs. Well, really, the whole band's on there. What am I talking about? Tulsa Queen has always been a favorite of mine. And that one, Emmylou gets a partial songwriting credit along with Rodney Crowell. So those 3 albums are probably the ones that I would deem the most essential, at least to understanding where Emmylou started her career. From there, she just expanded and kind of expanded her musical reach, although it was slow. And Quarter Moon in a 10-Cent Town from 1978 is really kind of the last of the original 4 records that really got her reputation together. And this has got great tracks like To Daddy, another Dolly Parton, My Songbird by Jesse Winchester. A really nice Leaving Louisiana in the Broad Daylight. And just, let me see here. Ain't Living Long Like This is pretty good. In general, it's a pretty solid record. It's just not quite as solid as the 3 that came before it, although it pretty much follows the template, and you can't go wrong. It's a fine listen. So, oh yeah, and at that point, they saw fit to put out a greatest hits album, just based on those last 4 albums. So if you only want one for the early years, this is a good one. Profile. Now, at this point, I know she was getting a lot of flack for not putting out more standard country music albums. as opposed to these eclectic things that have the Beatles and the Louvin brothers and all these other things on them, which are my favorite. But so she put out Blue Kentucky Girl in 1979, right? Yep. And this one is more conventional, I would say. For the country listeners of the time, this is more like what they would expect. And on this, I love Sorrow in the Wind. It's a real ear candy with real nice harmonies on it. Beneath Still Waters is nice. This also has a Hickory Wind on it, which was another Graham song. So pretty nice. Not one that I reach for very often, but pretty solid record. All the same players on it. I believe it was at that time her Christmas album came out, also with the same players. This is a real nice, kind of on the mellow side Christmas album. This is not for a Christmas party. For that you've got your Charlie Brown theme, Vince Guaraldi, Charlie Brown Christmas. This is just nice to sit back and relax and listen to some nice renditions of things like Little Drummer Boy, Silent Night, Light of the Stable. This is one that I put on regularly. I often, frankly, swap Vince Guaraldi and this one just back and forth amongst a few others. After that, her next regular album was Roses in the Snow. And this is kind of more on the bluegrass side. I don't know if it has all the same exact players. It's still produced by Brian Ahern, and I honestly am not sure how to pronounce his name. So I apologize, Brian, if you're hearing this. Trying to give you your props. Just trying to see who played on this record, because it's quite different from the others. It's real bluegrassy. And I'm not sure who's playing on it. Am I seeing any credits anywhere? No, I don't think there were any music. Wait. Not really. There's not a list of musicians on this one, which is also a departure. I know Ricky Skaggs is on it. Tony Rice is on it. And also Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, and Linda Ronstadt. So it's good with that kind of a list of guest stars on it. But this is a favorite of mine too. This one gets played a lot. I'll pull this out regularly. It's kind of a different pace, and it suits her really well. And kind of reminds me of the Angel Band album that came after it, although it's distinctly different. This is more of a player's album, and we'll get to the one I just mentioned in a minute. So that came out, and then following it was Evangeline. Now, this album does not have the best reputation. It's okay. At this point, the albums are getting a little bit formulaic, I would say. Pretty much the same approach. And the thing is, a lot of these songs, I just don't, How High the Moon's kind of nice. She does nice Evangeline by the band. But overall, I don't reach for this one very often. There's always got to be, you can't be perfect all the time. It's not a bad record, but it's not a grab you record like the others. So following that was her first live album, Last Date. This is 1982. And the thing about this one is that, unlike most live albums, it's got all new material on it. She just treated it like a studio album, a new studio album. So all of these songs are new. Grievous Angel, she's got a version of on here, Graham again. Racing in the Streets, the Bruce Springsteen song, I like that one. Long May You Run, the Neil Young song. We'll Sweep Out the Ashes in the Morning, Devil in Disguise, those are both Graham Parsons selections, really good ones too. And I think Devil in Disguise is also known as Christine's tune and it opens up the Gilded Palace of Sin, the first Flying Burrito Brothers record. So this is pretty good. I'll put this on, and it's a fun listen. After that comes Cimarron, and I think this one has another Townes Van Zandt on here, If I Needed You. And really those two songs of Townes that she's covered, Poncho and Lefty and If I Needed You, are among Van Zant's very best material, although boy, did he write some great songs. No disrespect to him. I really love his work too. Maybe one day I'll do a show based on him. She also did The Price You Pay, another Bruce song, Tennessee Waltz, Spanish is a Loving Tongue. So it's okay. This again it's an all right record. There's nothing particularly spectacular about it. That's, I put it on once in a while. And then we have White Shoes, which actually is a fairly recent purchase. I didn't buy it back in the day when I was picking up all my Emmylou records. This is a recent Discogs purchase. And I like some of the stuff on this too, particularly the Sandy Denny cover that she does, Like an Old-Fashioned Waltz. It's nice for her to give props to Sandy Denny, who, by the way, was the one vocalist Led Zeppelin ever had as a guest on their albums. She's the singer on Battle of Evermore on Zeppelin 4. She was also in Fairport Convention throughout the year of 1969 when they released 3 albums that are all classics. So if you want to look more into Sandy Denny, you could start there and then start looking at her solo material. I would suggest you go for things like the BBC or the acoustic renditions. Her albums tended to be overproduced, but whenever she just sat down with a guitar or piano and sang, it was magnificent. So after that came this record, which I think deserves more credit than it gets. This is a concept album. It's also the first album, Ballad of Sally Rose, 1985. First one where she wrote all the songs or co-wrote. This is an original album. And she, up till now, had been more of an interpretive singer, just selecting things that fit her voice well, that she liked, that fit her style. But this is all hers. And it's kind of autobiographical. She kind of is the Sally Rose that she talks about on here. So I don't think anybody would know these songs unless they listen to the record. But I strongly suggest this one. If you get a chance to listen to it, maybe on YouTube, Spotify, those sorts of things, I would do it. I've always liked the record. At this point, the last few records hadn't sold very well, so she wasn't selling large volumes of records anymore. But, I think her quality was still pretty good. And this record, 13, came next. This one I don't think is even available on CD right now, which is kind of mysterious. I like this one too. This has got a nice mystery train on it. My Father's House, yet another Bruce. I can tell she was listening to a lot of Bruce Springsteen in the 80s, like everybody else was. Yeah, again, a good record. It's definitely good enough to be out and available. There's no question about that. But for some reason, hasn't hit the CD shelves yet. I hope that changes because it's not bad. It's another one of those, I would put it about it's okay. It's not bad. There's some good stuff on here. It's worth having in the collection. So after that came one of my favorite records, Angel Band. Now this record, and note, it's 1987. You can see with the stonewash, but it's a fine record. These are all basically just very sparse instrumentation. And she's got 3 guys singing with her, and a lot of it is just harmonies. A lot of it is gospel oriented. If I Be Lifted Up, Precious Memories, Bright Morning Stars. These are songs that she sang, or I think she still sings in her live show. These are great songs. Drifting Too Far from the Shore. Yeah, so if you're looking for something a little gospely, a little quiet, with really nice voices, this is the album for you. You should check it out immediately. So that was 1987. For those of you that weren't there, by 1987, CDs were starting to take over the world. So unfortunately, I don't have albums for the next couple. But this was the one that got me started. This is Bluebird. This is from 1988, and it's got just a mess of excellent songs on here. In fact, I started a little folk trio a few years back, and it's over for the time being. We may start up again, but we covered a couple tracks, maybe 3 tracks off of this one, as a matter of fact. Heaven Only Knows, You've Been on My Mind, Icy Blue Heart, No Regrets, the Tom Rush song. Yeah, Lonely Street, I Still Miss Someone. These are great tracks. This album really hangs together nicely, and it should be more prominent in her discography, if you ask me. It's a pretty good one. So after that came Brand New Dance. This one is a little bit more conventional to my ears. It was a little bit more kind of a throwback to the early 80s or the late 70s. Kind of had that formula, but she's got Tougher Than the Rest, another Bruce Springsteen. I Can't Fault You. I like Bruce too. He's a great songwriter. Brand New Dance is a pretty good song on its own. Wheels of Love, I think, got some airplay at the time. I'd put this maybe a step beneath Bluebird, but it's not, again, it's nice to have. It's a good record. I mean, she does solid work regardless. So the next record I loved so much that while I had gotten it on CD back then, I went and got a reissue not that long ago, maybe a couple years ago, and I love this thing. This is Emmylou live with the Nash Ramblers at the Ryman. Nash Ramblers, I know, included people like Sam Bush, really stellar and well-known bluegrass player. And there were other people like that on here. I'm not sure where here, I'm looking for the notes here because I don't want to get this wrong. The whole band was made up of really fantastic players and singers. Yeah, Roy Husky Jr. on the bass. Sam Bush, Al Perkins, John Randall Stewart, and Larry, oh boy, Atamanuk on drums. Anyway, it was a great band. And this thing, you can just play this thing top to bottom on repeat all day long, and it will be a good day for you. This is one of her highlights in her, after her initial burst of popularity. This is such a great record. I can't recommend it more highly. All of the performances are stellar. They're done, of course, in Nashville on the famed Ryman stage. The crowd's into it. The song selection is just, this is a great upbeat record. They just don't get tired of. She's got stuff by Steve Earle, Guitar Town, Hank Williams, Half As Much, Hard Times. She also does things like Lodi, Walls of Time, which I love, and Get Up, John. It's a Hard Life Wherever You Go. That's a highlight. Abraham Martin and John, which is a little bit unexpected, but boy, they did a nice version of that one. So this is a 2-record set. If you get the CD, of course, it's pretty long. Well worth your time. Highly recommend that one. Okay, so again, this was a time when now it wasn't easy to find the vinyl albums, and I haven't gone back and tried to find them yet, but I really should. The one that came after that was Cowgirl's Prayer. This album you don't hear about very much because it's in between the Ryman and Wrecking Ball, which was another highlight and kind of brought her back into the spotlight again. So not a lot of people knew about this one, kind of tucked in between. And this has things like her original song, Prayer in Open D. She does a really ethereal version of that. Well, it's ethereal here too, but on Spy Boy, the live album. That is one of my favorite tracks of hers, Prayer in Open D. And here it is on here. She also does a really nice Jerusalem Tomorrow by David Olney. It's a pretty solid one. This is one, honestly, I should play more often. I have been neglecting it, but when it came out, I played it all the time. it was worth it, you know. So after that, we have Wrecking Ball. Now this one, I know Neil Young did a guest spot because Wrecking Ball happens to be a Neil Young song, and it was a contemporary one at the time. I believe it came out on Freedom, his 1989 album. This came out in 95. Deeper Well, that's the Olney song. That's an Olney, Dave Olney, and Dan Lanois and Emmylou Harris all have a credit on that one. She does other Steve Earle, Lucinda Williams, Jimi Hendrix, May This Be Love. You know, this is one of those that splits up the Emmylou fans into two camps because she doesn't really sound the way she did anymore. She developed into something else. And here she's got that Daniel Lanois sound, which, you know, so kind of along the lines of Peter Gabriel, U2, that sort of spacious sound that he gets with his productions. So that's what this sounds like. It's kind of more along the lines of that as opposed to a country album or anything close to a country album. I like it. I really like it, actually. I consider this another highlight record, although honestly, I haven't pulled it out recently, which is too bad. She also does Every Grain of Sand, Bob Dylan. I mean, come on, you know, these are great songs. So I recommend that one. So I believe after that, she had a little bit of a hiatus, and it wasn't until 98 or so that this live album came out, which I believe was in support of Wrecking Ball. So the guys she has with her are kind of a power trio with her on top. And she does songs from all over her career. She's got My Songbird from those first albums. Where Will I Be, which was on the Angel Band. Ain't Living Long Like This, I believe, was on Quarter Moon in a 10-Cent Town. Love Hurts with Graham Parsons, you know. But these are all from the tour in 1998, you know, just to be clear on that. Prayer in Open D, Deeper Well, Calling My Children Home, Wheels, Born to Run, not the big epic song by Bruce, but the other one. Boulder to Birmingham, I mean, The Maker. It's solid. If you like this one, you'll probably like this one. Otherwise, you probably won't. Okay. So, and I saw Emmylou, actually, I should mention that. The one time I saw her was in a theater, the Berkeley Theater in Boston, which is a 700-seat venue. So not bad. And she was playing with the same guys that played at the Ryman. So it was a small venue, and it was top-notch players playing some of the best stuff she'd had in years at that point. That was 92. Definitely a highlight in my concert-going career. So after that, she came back with, well, you know, right now I'm kind of ignoring the trio. I'll get back to them. But Red Dirt Girl, that came out in, I believe, 02, 03. You know, they don't say on the label, and I should know. But it was maybe it was it was 2000. Okay, it was 2000. I actually remember having a job at that time and bringing the CD with me all the time to play. It's only her second album of original songs. She went a long way to rectifying the imbalance between the albums of covers and original songs from this point forward. So again, this is one of those you know, if you haven't heard it, you may not have heard in any of the tracks, but this is a nice one. I suggest it. I also suggest its follow-up, which I believe was 2003, Stumble into Grace. They just stopped putting the years on these things. Anyway, on the outside anyway, around this time, I don't know what that was about. That's a little unconventional. But yeah, this is 2003. So another one where I believe she wrote, if not the vast majority, the entire album. Maybe with a little help, maybe not. Let me just check that because I don't want to diss you, Emmylou. Here, let me see here. Yeah, Emmylou. Here's one with Emmylou and the McGarrigle sisters. I Will Dream. Yeah, see, and there's another one, Little Bird. Boy, and the McGarrigles. Boy, they were amazing. Okay, so anyway, yes, it's all her songs with the occasional stellar helper kind of putting in input. So another good one. Now, I'm not sure, but I think that the very next one was this one, which by this time I was back into vinyl. It's 2008. And I said, you know, I've got to start picking up vinyl again. And this is a good one. This one actually came with a CD inside. This is another one where she writes all the songs, you know? And this is kind of a throwback. It's produced again by Brian Ahern, who had not been producing anything for the last 20 years for her. So it kind of has that feel of her early records. And it's a real nice listen. Worth picking up. After that, I'm sorry to say I don't have the record in my possession, but she put out Hard Bargain, I think in 2012, and I think that may be her very last release under her own name. I don't actually have a copy of that, I'm surprised to see. I'll have to change that soon. So I can't really review it. I do know that she, again, did most of the songs herself. She wrote most of the songs herself. So good for you, Emmylou. So let me just head back around to the years of trio. Actually, there were only really 2 years of the trio, which is a sad thing. They were both so busy. I mean, the three of them were so busy at this time, all having stellar careers and, you know, their own solo careers made it impossible for them to really do much other than get together whenever they can, book some studio time. I don't know that they even did any shows for this, which is a shame. I could be wrong. If I am, please let me know down below. There's nothing wrong with any part of this record. Honestly, the song Telling Me Lies, I'm like, okay. I love him. I love Linda Ronstadt too. But that particular song felt like maybe it was a little out of step. I don't know. But My Dear Companion, Farther Along, you know, Rosewood Casket, The Pain of Loving You, To Know Him Is to Love Him. I mean, wow, you know. And the three voices, come on. Emmylou, Linda Ronstadt, and Dolly Parton. You're never going to hear better than that. Years later, this was released, which really just makes up the entire list of songs that they recorded at that time back in, you know, whatever it was, 86, 87, earlier. I think that they were recorded over a long period of time. So, but mostly 86, but not always. So this is nice. You can pick this up now. It's a 2-record set. It's got everything from then. There was a trio too. They did a real nice version of After the Gold Rush, Tucson sessions with Linda Ronstadt also followed. Those were late 90s, early 2000s. Linda sadly can't sing anymore, so I think that's the end of the trio era. But she left behind some great recordings. Maybe I'll talk about Linda sometime too, because I've got a stack of wax of her, and yeah, she's definitely worth talking about. So that pretty much sums up everything I've got having to do with Emmylou. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel. Usually it's going to be me and Adrian. Every so often I'm going to branch off because there are plenty of artists that I like that he's not too familiar with. So we'll occasionally get something like this. We're also trying to get more material up on the YouTube channel, just because, you know, once you find a good channel, you want to just watch everything, right? The power of suggestion, folks. You want to watch all our videos. All right. So that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please subscribe if you did. And yeah, folks, talk to you soon. Take care.